Can you talk briefly about what you guys do in Tamkeen?
Thank you, Nawaf. Is my voice clear? Sorry, this is not usually my voice, but I'm not feeling well today, so please, I apologize for that. First of all, thank you very much for attending this session. Welcome to Bahrain. We're very pleased that you have attended this session to get to know more about our ecosystem. For those of you, I can see some of you have come from abroad. Just to give you a very brief snapshot about Tamkeen, we were launched as a semi-government organization in 2006 with the main objective of enhancing, supporting the private sector to be the main engine of growth for the economy. So to simplify that even more, our vision emphasizes on proactively nurturing the development of dynamic enterprises backed by quality talent. And we were actually launched, the idea of Tamkeen, is my voice clear? I don't think it's going to get any better with the mic. Is it clear now? So the initiative was actually introduced to fulfill the economic perspective of Bahrain's Vision 2030 in line with the labor market reform. So ever since the launch of Tamkeen for the past 13 years, we have supported more than 185,000 individuals through an array of support services. We have supported which actually represents more than 38% of Bahrainis in the private sector workforce. We've even supported more than 55,000 businesses, which actually represents more than 55% of active businesses in Bahrain. How we do that? We've introduced, as the keynote session actually said today, that we have introduced more than 300 initiatives to do with financing. We've injected more than $2 billion in terms of grants to businesses to support technology acquisition, to support their marketing requirements, to support their business development requirements, and any support that would support them from starting their business up to diversification and for them to grow. We even provide non-financial support such as advisory, mentorship, and coaching, and that too without any cost incurred on the business. We also subsidize the cost of training and development to businesses who are willing to invest in their workforce. So basically, in line with our objective, Tamkeen has recently introduced, as part of its 2018-2020 strategy, as part of the 2018-20 strategy, its investment initiative that basically to enrich and to expand Tamkeen's business growing support to all the businesses in the Kingdom of Bahrain. And we do that by providing company linkages. We do that to support companies to actually, is it clear? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
To support companies, to support investors, getting linkages with investees. We also support them in order to nurture the investor ecosystem, support businesses. The main objective of the investment initiative, of Tamkeen's investment initiative, is to provide an environment where businesses can actually raise capital. We want to cultivate and fuel the environment to basically support them to raise private equity and to get access to funding. And how we do that? We are exploring multiple investment-related initiatives under 4 main pillars, which is investing directly in companies, in new high potential new or current businesses. We support investments in multiple strategic funds, be it in strategic sectors or segments. We are exploring the option of introducing investment bridging and facilitation programs, as well as investing in strategic ventures, strategic facilities, and strategic portfolios that would support businesses to diversify, support businesses to actually get connected, the investment-ready business to get connected to the right initiatives, to the right investment opportunities that they would require. And I believe that through these initiatives in Tamkeen, with the support of our partners, of course, will allow businesses not only to raise capital, not only to get access to funding, but to also support them to actually get an access to sustainable funding for their innovative ventures. And I'm sure that these support services that we're providing as part of the investment package will definitely position and cement Bahrain's role within the ecosystem in order to basically support the startups, in order to ensure that we are having the businesses have the right platform to test their ideas, to seek new investments from abroad, in order to continue fueling and growing the private sector. Is the message clear? I'm so sorry about it. Thank you.
Anybody who would like to connect with our panelists, you can do so after the panel. Keeping the discussion within the government support to the startup ecosystem, I'd like to ask Dr. Simon, can you walk us through the physical and soft infrastructure that the kingdom puts in place in the last couple of years of the growing ecosystem, basically, for example, such as AWS data center, and what government support does the EDB support in that way?
All right, well, thank you very much. Delighted to be here. From Bahrain's perspective, we have to play to our strengths. And what we need to do is to put in place the right infrastructure to allow both Bahraini founders and entrepreneurs to start and grow their businesses, but also to attract global talent to come in and start businesses here or scale up businesses here. And of course, there's two parts to that. One part is the physical infrastructure, making sure we've got the right data centers, and having Amazon Web Services put their first major data region here in Bahrain, covering the whole of the Middle East and Africa, is an important development for us. But also things like 5G. We're, as a compact, small economy, we're able to roll out 5G across the whole of the country. And we're planning to do that in the next few months. So that puts in place the physical infrastructure. But startup entrepreneurs also need to have the right regulatory space. And so in Bahrain, we have reformed and changed a whole raft of regulations and laws to make sure that we live up to our business-friendly image. Whether it's completely revising the insolvency law to allow companies that do fail to come back bigger and better and stronger than before by using a Chapter 11 type provision, whether it's about protecting data by having a data protection law, a data embassy sovereignty type legislation that allows people that have data in Kuwait or other parts of the world to store the data in Bahrain in these data centers, but still have it administered under their domestic law. And then when it comes to fintech, we've gone from zero to hero by working closely with our central bank and putting in place and cherry-picking legislation from around the world that will work here in Bahrain. So we have a regulatory sandbox, the first onshore regulatory sandbox in the GCC that allows fintech companies to test their products, start interacting directly with Bahraini consumers, Bahraini companies from day one, and then hopefully scale up and go international. But we've got two other secret weapons, if you like. One is the fact that Bahrain scores incredibly highly as an expat place to live. Number one in the world for the Internation Survey, number 5 in the world in HSBC. And that's important because we want to attract and retain talent here in Bahrain, talent that could choose to live anywhere in the world. And the second great secret weapon is Tamkeen. Tamkeen offers a whole raft of support for businesses to train up Bahrainis, to upscale Bahrainis, to employ young graduates, to invest in technology that both local companies and companies from outside of Bahrain can take advantage of. So those two things together are quite a winning mix.
Perfect. Moving to our neighbors in Oman, Oman Technology Fund is relatively new. So would you care to talk about your experience and what do you do in Oman Techno Fund?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation. Thanks to Safa for inviting me and having me in this respectful panel. Such a pleasure to be here. Oman Technology Fund, as you said, relatively newly established. Oman Technology Fund established in October 2016 with the mandate of investing in tech startups and entrepreneurs in 3 different stages. So it's fund of fund concept. We have 3 funds targeting entrepreneurs in 3 different stages: pre-seed, seed, and growth. Each fund has its own characteristics and criteria, ticket size, etc. I'm looking after Takween, not Tamkeen, Takween, which is formation in Arabic. So we take tech
Ideas.
and it's ween.
Okay.
So the ticket size is $50,000 and we take 7% in exchange. And we take our participants in a roller coaster journey of an acceleration program for 3 months. We work with an Irish partner, and we have a couple of weeks in Dublin with our startups, like the whole team. We call it Immersion Week. So we take the startups in a customer discovery journey, because the burning pain for entrepreneurs, one of the burning pains, I mean, they are producing stuff that people doesn't want. So we need to validate that there's a real potential in the market for this product or service, and people want it the way, maybe it doesn't. They have to pivot to what exactly people want, because sometimes there's a little tweak in the idea where you put it in the right context and it just boom. So this is for Takween. Wadi, which is the seed stage fund. The ticket size is $100,000 and we take 10% in exchange, and it's another 3 months program. But the focus here would be on, scaling up, aggressive marketing, penetrating new markets, stuff like that. The growth fund.
Do they have to be Omani?
No. We take like Omani and international. The focus is on MENA++.
Okay.
But wherever we think, it's a very feasible, good, investable idea, we just go for it. The third fund is جسور. جسور من الجسارة وليس جسور. جسور is a pure venture capital. There is no program attached to جسور. The ticket size is $500,000 up to $3 million. Right now, we started our investment towards the second half of 2017. So almost the first year went into setting up the fund, getting in, collecting the team, headhunting people, building a policy, procedures, stuff like that. Within a year and a half, we have like 53 companies in our portfolio, OTF portfolio as a whole.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Moving to corporates, Chev, 120 years of family legacy in business, investment, and support to the local community in India and elsewhere. So we'd like to know your experience in investing in startup and also the startup scene in India. So would you be able to shed light on that?
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak here. I'm very impressed by this wonderful event. We come from an Indian family business in traditional industries, but we started investing in technology and startups maybe 25 years ago.
Wow.
And 25 years ago, actually, in India, there was no startup environment like this at all. And in fact, when Bangalore started with the first IT companies, Infosys and so on, I remember, although we in India believed it was a big opportunity, I remember going and visiting the US and meeting my friends in California, in Stanford and Harvard and Wharton and so on, and they said, India is irrelevant. No one's going to pay any attention to it. So we started a venture capital fund 25 years ago called Westbridge Capital, which became one of India's leading venture funds. And then Sequoia Capital came in and partnered with Westbridge Capital, and it's today one of India's leading venture funds. When we first approached Sequoia in the US, they weren't interested in coming to India at all. 5 years later, they all came in, and they're very happy working in India. Today, India has a huge ecosystem around the big universities and a few cities: Bangalore, Hyderabad, Bombay, Delhi. These are the places, Chennai. So around universities, around the IITs, and in big cities where there's a technology infrastructure in terms of manpower, you're now starting to see the development of an entrepreneurial ecosystem. So just to say, it takes a little time. It doesn't happen overnight. But I think that it's very exciting to see what's happening now in the technology world, all over the world. And with the acceleration of new technologies and the absorption of new technologies around the world in many different industries, from agri-tech to transportation, mobility, to e-commerce, I think that it's exciting to see what is happening in this part of the world as well. And I think you'll see a pre-Kareem era and a post-Kareem era in terms of the psychology, where now everything is possible here.
A new terminology.
Yeah, so I think it's very exciting because I think actually now, I think this region has come of age and a lot more can happen and will happen. And I think these type of events, the key thing is to be a little patient and to have local entrepreneurs and local ecosystem and government support participating in this. My only piece of advice would be to this region and to your country, it would be that it's very important to be connected into the global infrastructure and the global ecosystem. Because being a frog in a pond, you don't really understand what's happening in the ocean. With India, it was very lucky for India because we had a lot of people studying in the US, an Indian diaspora of professors, of PhD students, of students who all connected back to India and pulled India out into the West and particularly into the US. And that helped us a lot to really create what we have today. And I think it's really important for this region as well to not think of itself just as either this city or this country or this region, but to really think of this industry globally and see how do we connect to the world and then take the best here and connect to the world, bring the best from the world into this country, because scale is very important in technology industries. And for you to get scale and the best technologies, then you need to really connect with the rest of the world.
I think Ali would help us in telling us what is so special about the Middle East, since you're a VC in the Middle East and startups are, you invest in startups in the Middle East. So
I think Khalid Al-Rumayhi, the chief executive of the EDB a while back, touched upon it, I think yesterday. So the Arab world is tough, right? It's super fragmented. You have 23 countries. All of them are different regulations. I mean, we do have a lot of common, obviously we have a common language, a common heritage, but even if you take a look at, for example, Kuwait, very strong purchasing power. Very bad when it comes to regulations and supporting startups coming from abroad. Bahrain, much more supportive, but less of a purchasing power. Saudi is trying to be open. They have a very strong purchasing power, but it's mainly driven by nationals and actually Saudi nationals. If you take a look at the UAE, in Dubai, it's actually driven by expats, right? So a lot of startups might do well in the UAE, and then when they want to actually go into Saudi, they might not do well. So it's one big country, like it's one big region. We have a lot of commonalities, but also at the same time, there are a lot of differences. And it's very, very tough for startups from this region to actually expand to their neighboring cities and neighboring countries. So I think that's what makes it unique. I mean, we need to have startups with a lot of tenacity to actually go beyond, Bahrain and actually to go into the Saudi market. Egypt also is another big giant, right? I mean, it's very hard to actually enter into Egypt. People are very price sensitive, for example. So for any international player, like Uber, let's say, talking about the Kareem example, it's not that easy to actually go into the Arab market. So there are some barriers to entry. The fact that you're from the region, you understand the differences between one country to another, right? Obviously, you want to merge that with a global view, understanding of what's going on globally, and then how can we leverage, new technologies, new ideas, and how would they fit in the region. Another thing also maybe what makes the Arab world or the MENA region also unique or special is that there's still a lot of opportunity in the e-commerce, vertical, in the on-demand services. A lot of sectors are still super nascent. I mean, even if you want to take a look at, on-demand services, groceries, e-commerce, media, I mean, we're still actually lagging way behind, other regions that are way more sophisticated. Even things like, very basic stuff like, if you want to take a look at groceries or food delivery, I mean, I think I would leave it to Umar to talk more about it. But I mean, the penetration rates and the market share for how many people and how often they order from using online channels is actually very small if you compare it to South Korea or the UK or even the States. So the room for growth in the technology sector is still is great. I mean, the potential is huge. And we haven't touched upon it. All of these great successful stories, whether it's Kareem, Karaj, or Talabat, these are just touching the surface, right? And we're still expecting a lot of changes, in our adoption of new technologies and new ideas. That's number one. Number two, also hopefully Bahrain and maybe UAE are taking some steps towards fixing the regulations, but also once other countries will adopt it, I think we'll also have a boost of more startups and businesses and ideas, maybe out of Kuwait and maybe Egypt and whatnot. Number three, that there's still a lot of potential. So all the success that we see, I think it's still nascent, especially when we compare it to more sophisticated markets. One thing I would end with is what we think lack is the university part and the academic part. True. I mean, most of the businesses and the startups that we see, it's very light when it comes to technology. It's I mean, we don't have deep tech. We don't have like really deep collaborations with the academic institutions, with the research centers, IoT and hardware and biotech and medtech and even education. These are still super nascent, and they're really, practically they don't really exist that much. So I think there's huge potential as well from that front.
Thank you. Going to the startup, Umar is the managing director of Karaj, our favorite app at home. It ruined weekends for us because we sit at home now mostly. Yeah. So tell us about why do startups fail, or since you come from Saudi and the market is huge, what makes them fail or grow?
Fail or grow. Well, thanks for having me here. I will just do quick comments. I know we're short on time, but you hit a nail on the head, as they say, when you mentioned the collaboration on regulation on a region level. An example of that is what's potentially happening between the UAE and Saudi Arabia on the fintech domain, on the digital currency. They're going to experiment with something, see if it works, and they'll roll it out or maybe not. But it's that, regulation all over the region. Regulation reform is the number one reason why any business will come into a new country, or also that will enable an existing startup to grow. Back to the entrepreneurs. I do believe that setting up the priorities is to any startup is going to set them for failure or success. That's my opinion on it. When the priorities are not set correctly in the beginning, then you're not going to go. If you don't know where you're going, you're not going to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So setting up the priorities and goals. The second thing is, which I also I have a different thought on that, but market validation is a very, very important thing. I'm talking from a business perspective. You can have the most innovative product in the market, right? There are so many innovative, headphones out there, but there are only few that are absolutely amazing for business, from business perspective. So market validation and demand. At the same time, disruptive industries, they create demand. There was not demand on something, they created demand. So it's where, thinking that way. So for a lot of entrepreneurs and startups to fail or to succeed, they need to know where they're going, what business they're going. Is it good from business perspective, or is it just a good, cool idea? That's and I'm not saying all entrepreneurs are like that, right? And not all startups are like that. And startups not necessarily have to be tech startups, right? Innovation not necessarily means disruption. However, disruption most of the time is innovative. So I hope that just gives a clear...
Sorry, the organizers gave us a limit on our time 30 minutes max. We need to wrap up. Thank you very much for attending our session. Thank you for our international guests. Welcome to Bahrain, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you. And you can connect with all of our panelists outside the session room. And please, any questions, you can have them outside. Thank you very much.
Thank you.